Welcome everyone. Appreciate you tuning in today to another one of our Facebook Lives. It's a great day to be in Kansas. It's sunny, it's going to be blistering hot, but we are cool as cucumbers this morning in our summer garb. I feel good because I got up early and came into the office really early to take a watercolor class from someone who I admire who was in London or England someplace. So I'm all revved up, feel creative, and ready to tell you what's going on at the sewing workshop. As you know, I always start out by talking about Sew Confident, and this month's pattern that we're working on is the gardenia dress and blouse. I always forget that we have a blouse. We've never called a pattern a blouse before. And I thought I'd show you a couple of versions that you might not have seen. I've been showing them to you in prints, and this is how pretty this can look in a solid color. This is a lightweight viscose and linen, so it has a little bit of wrinkling property to it, but you can really see the details now of this dress that has the tie with, it has a total of 4 pleats inside of here, and then there's a pleat at the neck that doesn't get sewn completely to the top, so you have this little detail at the top. The dress version has an extended shoulder with a folded sleeve band. You can, of course, make it any length you want. And the blouse, same details other than a different kind of sleeve. It's bound at the arm's eye rather than having the extended shoulder and the folded armband, but it still has the bias binding at the neck, same pleat, same tie, just shorter, and this is in a little embroidered cotton. So you can make this in anything, really, including a fabric that we just got some more in. We have quite a bit of this fabric, and I think this is fantastic. This is a Ramie, which is one of the fabrics we've been talking about this month with this project. And we call this our goldfish fabric. It does have fish on it, but it has a very Asian quality to it. It's like this has been watercolored, like I did this morning. Pen and ink and watercolor. It's wide, it's 60 inches wide. It feels like handkerchief linen, but it is Ramie, which is a different plant than flax, but definitely has the characteristics of handkerchief linen. And when you wash it, it gets nice and soft, wrinkles just right. So we have a new bolt of this in. This is just a piece that was left over from a previous bolt. The month of July, we are doing our fitting series, and this week we are talking about sleeves. But just to review a little bit what's going on this month is that we have our Fashion Encyclopedia, which is a 42-page booklet with all of the alterations for patterns that I think are the ones that we can do on our own and the ones that are the most common. So this deals with lengthening and shortening, altering sleeves, fitting the bust, fitting shoulders, fitting pants, all the things that seem to be the problem children for most of us. And just this month, we introduced the Fashion Fitting Workbook, which is the piece that goes with this. Now you can do either or, but it is kind of nice to have both because on a page it will say, refer to page such and such in the booklet, and you have the instructions printed, and then you have a secondary sheet that has a little half-scale template that you can cut out and actually do the alterations and paste that on your sheet here. So it's a record of what that process is. So you get a little practice before you have to do it on your full-size patterns. But today I'm going to talk about fitting sleeves and fitting the girth around your arm. Let's review the tools. I use medical exam paper for my pattern paper. I really like this. I like it because it's smooth on one side and a little bit gritty on the other side. I can see through it. I can tape to it. And the tape that I use is the Scotch removable tape. Always remember that that has the blue core and the blue packaging. And you can't just find it at any little drugstore, but you can definitely find it at like Office Depot, Target, other office supply houses, and of course online as well. Sometimes I use vellum. This is from my architectural days, where I want to be able to see exactly the additions or corrections that I've made. I might tape this particular paper to this paper so I can see what's going on. My two tools are the 2" by 18" gridded ruler. It has an 1/8" grid on it. I like it because it's flexible. I can really see through it. And of course our hip curve, which I use for everything other than for hips, including hips. But again, I've gotten so used to these clear tools that I can hardly go back to more solid ones. And we carry these. These come from Japan, and they're very lightweight, relatively inexpensive compared to the metal ones that we see in the drafting stores. Now, we use this very special tape measure here. This is a tape measure that has the number 1 at both ends of the tape measure on opposite sides. And there's a reason we do that. If you're measuring, let's say, your hip, well, you want to know where you are the fullest. So you can put this tape measure around your hip, and then you can take the other end and measure from the point at which that tape is and go up to your waist, so that you know that you are 7, 8, 9 inches, whatever, fullest below your waist. And that means that you can then measure down on your pattern and know exactly where to measure to compare the pattern to your measurements. So this is a tape measure that we carry. You never know what color you're going to get. It comes in white, pink, yellow, and blue, and we have all of them. And I think we pick one up and we send it to you, so you might get blue, you might get pink, who knows. So those are my, and the red pencil, I can't forget to talk about my little red pencil. This is a very specific Prismacolor pencil called Col Erase, C-O-L-Erase, carmine red, and it has an eraser. I like this because I can see it on my tissue, but I can also erase it. You can see I've used the eraser a lot, so I have another eraser that I put on here. We have lots of these around the office, but they all seem to be minus the erasers because we must erase a lot. I don't know. So the red pencil is my favorite tool. So I'm going to demonstrate today how to expand the girth of a sleeve. And one of the things that I find useful is to make add a little piece of hardware to the end of my tape measure. To measure this measurement on you is really hard to do. And in fact, generally your arms are different. If you're right-handed, this arm might be a little bit bigger than your left arm, so you want to be sure and measure the largest arm. And just to be able to wrap a tape measure around this area is really hard to do. So if you put a little D-ring at the end, and you put that at the 1 inch mark, then you can put the opposite end of the tape measure through this D-ring so that it forms somewhat of a lasso. And I can put my arm through it, and I can draw it up. Now, my trifocals don't allow me to look down there and see that number, but I can stand in front of a mirror and see what the number is, remembering to, I have this inch thing. Do I add it or subtract it, Erin? I folded it up, so I'm going to have to add my inch. Yes, okay. Remember to do that, because this might say one thing and you are something else. But having this tape measure that has the numbers on both sides in inches, not metric, but in inches, then this says, for example, 13 inches. So I would record 14 inches on my little chart. So I think this is a really handy tool. Now, there are some things that you can buy like this, but I think they're kind of hard to get your hands on, and so this is just a simple little tool, and of course it's just one little trip to the hardware store, or in my case, the junk drawer in the kitchen had this little D-ring. All right, so let's look at how you would do this. So we have our measurement. I'm using a sleeve that started out to be very narrow. This is the olive sleeve, actually. So the first thing to do is to identify the finished corners where this arm cap comes down and connects with the seam of the sleeve. So I've already done my work here, but I'm going to measure this as if that wasn't done. So this sleeve measures 11 3/4. In the workbook and in the fitting encyclopedia, there are ease charts, little boxes. I think it's on, let's see, in the fitting book, it's on page 26. There's a little chart here of how much ease you want in the upper arm, and it distinguishes how much you need for a blouse, a dress, an unlined jacket, a lined jacket, or a coat. So in this case, for a blouse, I need 1 to 1.5 inches beyond my measurement. So I would want to have something that measures 15 inches or 15.5 inches for ease. Now, this is really narrow because actually this pattern is meant for a knit, and those run a little bit narrower. So we'll kind of ignore that fact. In fact, I'm even sorry I mentioned it. But for this sleeve that measured, what did I say, almost 12 inches, I would need to add almost 3 inches to this sleeve if I were making it in a woven. All right, so then you draw a line up the center of the sleeve. Now, generally that's where the dot is at the top of the cap, but not always, as is indicated in this case. So this is the center of the sleeve. And I'm cutting this open, but leaving a little hinge right at the top. You can leave a hinge at the bottom. I tend to come straight through. It doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to draw a line and cut from this corner to this corner, leaving hinges here and here. Now you figure out how much you want to spread this, so you start right here by spreading this, and you're trying to keep these edges as flat as you can. But in this case, I've spread this 1 inch. You know, I might need to spread it 3 inches. It doesn't matter what the distance is. Whatever the tools tell you is what you need to do. But you're allowing the bottom portions to overlap these top portions. So this spreads and comes down, this spreads and goes up. So this is overlapped through here. And I've allowed this then to be really flat, and I've taped it down. And so this is the amount of fabric through here that I've added to the girth of my arm. So that should work. All right. And you can see I've used that vellum underneath. In this case, I just did a little shading in red pencil so you could really see it. But this is overlapped. Let's get the tape off here a minute. This is this removable tape. It doesn't shred the paper, which I love. So I allowed that to, I figured out my spread here, and then whatever amount that needed to overlap here is what it is. All right. Do we want to take any questions about this now? Are there, or shall we move on?
There is a couple questions.
Okay.
So it might be helpful. Doesn't the overlap on the sleeve act to shorten the sleeve cap?
It just flattens the sleeve cap. It doesn't shorten it. The same distance is still there because you're allowing this to be flat. It just flattens it a little bit. If you want to raise that again, you can, but I don't do that because I want to keep this the same shape and distance as what it's inserted into. Now you might, depending on how much you're overlapping, you may want to add some length to the sleeve again. You need to have that measurement in mind as well. So you need to know your sleeve length from wherever to the wrist bone or wherever it is. I was surprised. I trued this up at the bottom just a little bit so it's a straight line. Sometimes it's more than this. I was surprised that it wasn't more on this sleeve. But you can certainly add length, through that up so it's a straight line again, because that tends to be more when you, in most cases, can't really explain why it wasn't on this one.
Okay, I think you're back.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't know, the internet, it's too hot, I guess.
Okay, we're going to continue some questions. So sorry about that. Okay, so I need the higher sleeve cap. So please show how to add that additional length.
I can't do that here really, but that because one of the things you need to remember is that this distance needs to stay within a certain range of your arm's eye. So if your arm's eye measured, I don't know, I'm going to guess 22 inches, the most this can measure is another inch to an inch and a half. So if you're raising the sleeve cap, you're going to have to recalculate and make sure that that is not adding a lot of distance to make that sleeve go a lot higher. That's redesigning and redrafting a sleeve, which is not what this is about. This is about altering the sleeves that are designed to go into the garments. This is not about drafting new sleeves for you. Sorry about that.
Okay, and so if you are having trouble with the screen being frozen, please refresh your page, but we are back now. So why not use the armhole and sleeve for a larger size?
Well, you probably could, but that does make this bigger, which is not necessarily what we're talking about. We are talking about a need for extra fabric right here. What you're talking about would add a bigger opening and more sleeve. That's kind of a different issue.
How much can you widen the sleeve without distorting the cap?
Well, as I said, I would need to do 3 inches for this pattern, and I think that's pretty much max, I would think, but I don't know. I've done some pretty extreme increases. Some people, if they get beyond 2 or 3 inches, will start to split in other places as well to spread out that addition. Yeah, 3 inches is a lot.
Can you address the modification needed for the forward shoulder on the sleeve?
Forward shoulders. Did we do that in the previous month? Was it last month last week?
We've done it. I don't know if we talked about
Did we not
the
talk about
sleeve, or if we didn't have a sleeve up here. I guess we
I don't
probably
have
talked about
a
it,
sleeve. I don't have a pattern here to show you. But to do a forward shoulder alteration is to stay at the same point where it connects to the neck, and then move the shoulder seam forward, whatever, at ½ inch, let's say. So you've taken away this little wedge. Then you put that wedge onto the back. So whatever you take away from the front, you add to the back. And however much you've taken away in the front, you move the dot on the sleeve the same distance. So let's say you've taken away ½ inch. You have a ½ inch off of the front, but you've added that to the back, and you've moved the dot on the sleeve a ½ inch.
And that technique is in the
And that
fitting
technique
book,
is in the
correct?
book. Yes.
Right. So that might be the best place to see it. Okay, well that's it for questions right now.
Okay. All right. All right, so I have on the Venice shirt. And I was saying to Erin this morning, this is one of my favorite shirts. I like the way this sits on my body. I like the way it feels. It's fitted through the shoulders and the bust. Nice degree of ease in the sleeve. I think part of it is because it has darts on the front coming from the shoulder. So that's a nice little visual detail plus a fitting detail. And this garment just sits on me just right. I love the button detail. There's a single button at the stand, a single button right below that, and then it has double buttons in 3 places, and then a single button below that. It does have a ruffle, a double ruffle. So this is a ruffle that folds, and you have 2 layers of fabric that attach to the garment. And this is just the season of ruffles. I'm seeing it in so many things. Bottom of tops and blouses, tiers of ruffles in dresses. So I never thought of myself as a ruffle person, but this is just sort of the right amount of ruffle. But I was thinking this morning, there'd be no reason why you couldn't use this basic pattern as a shirt pattern without the ruffle. You could just lengthen it if you wanted to and do a shirt tail hem to this and just get rid of the ruffle. One of the other details I like especially about this is that the ruffle does end at the center back, not the center back, it's off to the right side, but it does separate. And this is a little button placket here. That's just a nice little detail. So I don't know if you can see it any better on mine. It's over here, I guess. But I think that makes a nice little twist to this. I saw this detail on a shirt that I saw in a store when I was in Toulouse. We always go shopping the day before our workshops in France at Chateau de Mas. And there's a store there that is no longer there. But at the time, we would go in there and poke around and look at details, and that came from that shirt. This has a collar and stand, except that they are all one. So this is a lot easier to sew than a separate stand and a collar. I really like that. It still looks like it's a collar and stand at the front, but it's definitely all in one piece. So it's one less step, one less hazardous step. And then the sleeves are a nice narrow cuff, not too wide, and a bias bound little vent finishing. You could shorten this sleeve, or we are talking about sleeves today, but you could make this garment without a sleeve at all. And if you're a member of So Confident and you're doing the gardenia blouse, then you know how to add bias binding to the arm's eye and the neck. This requires a little bit of a keyhole opening in the back. And we added a yoke just for some detail, but you can see here the 2 colors of flounce versus the body of the garment. And these darts stand out just a little bit more. But if you wanted to do something like this, then you just simply put the center front, which would be where the buttons are placed, on the fold of the fabric. Don't forget that. Don't do it at the edge, the cut line, or even the seam allowance line of a center front. It's always where the buttons are. That's your center front. That makes a nice summer shirt. So I thought we'd talk about fabric today for the Venice, or any other summer shirt. You know, it's funny, it's mid-July, and I'm just getting revved up for summer. I don't know about you. It takes me a while to get in gear for what I'm going to wear for summer, and I always feel a little bit like I'm behind the 8 ball on this, but I'm still sewing for summer. And then I always know that by the time I finish my summer sewing at the end of August, well, I'm ready for next spring and summer. I always have my wardrobe that I can pull out. But I'm going to talk about fabrics that are appropriate for shirts, summer shirts, the Venice shirt, the gardenia, blouse and dress. And I'm talking about mostly cotton fabrics. So let's take a look at some. I want to point out these 5 pieces here, particularly, because probably to you on the screen they look like nice pastel solids. But up close, they are tiny, tiny little checks, little gingham checks. This orange one is a gingham check, and its check is about 1/8 of an inch. These little checks are about 1/32 of an inch, but you can see them when you're working with them. So you have white with blue, white with green, and when you combine those, then that turns them into pastels. But the actual blue is a pretty strong blue as a fiber, and then when mixed with white, it tones it down and makes it more of a pastel. Same way with the green. This one is pink and white. This one is lilac, purple, and white. And this one is red and white. So they all look kind of tonal. I think they look really cool together, actually. When I hung them on the wall, I thought, oh my gosh, that would make a really tonal, really interesting piece to use all of them in one piece. These are cotton. They do have some polyester in them, which kind of surprised me because when I put these on the wall, I did steam them a little bit. They do wrinkle, so it's not like the polyester prevents wrinkling. I think it just adds a little bit of stability. I don't even know why it's in there, to tell you the truth. But anyway, it has a little bit of polyester in it, but I consider it a cotton gingham, very classic, traditional gingham woven. So we'll start at the bottom here. This is a cotton, all cotton, that has tiny, tiny little flowers in fuchsia and orange and yellow and white. And this has a very Liberty of London character to it. It's a nice piece of cotton and a small little mini print. And I thought it was pretty with just about anything on the wall, to tell you the truth. But I thought it was pretty with this red. I thought it looked good with the lilac, and I think it looks good with the pink as well. Then this one. Have I shown this one before? I don't think I have. I think this is brand new. It's pretty new, at least. I love this. So, you know, tropical prints are sometimes just too much. They're big, they're overpowering, they have big leaves and big birds and whatever. But this has all of this, but really small and really finely detailed. So we do have some parrots or cockadoos or whatever they're called. And we do have some leafy things, but very subdued really. And it's just a nice overall happy print of birds and vegetation. This is a nice cotton, all cotton. Came from Italy. I love plaids. And plaids are everywhere. This is the season of plaids, and I think that's going to be continuing into the fall. We're seeing a lot of plaids coming through for samples of fabrics that we can buy. And I hesitate to order plaids here, mostly because people just don't want to match them. But, you know, there's sometimes a plaid comes along and you just have to have one, and this is one of those because I love the colors in this plaid. It's a couple of colors of gray, with a peachy tone, a little bit of red, and a beautiful yellow-green to it. So this is an uneven plaid, so there is some matching. Let's see, is that an uneven plaid? No, that's an even plaid. I'm not sure. Doesn't matter, you have to match it anyway. Or you mix it with something else where the plaid is just sections of something and you don't have to match it at all. That's always my solution if I can't figure it out. But this has a little bit of lycra in it, which I find kind of interesting. This would make a fun pair of pants, actually. I just was on a website, Oska, O-S-K-A, and for fall, all they have are plaid pants, big pants. Our Picasso pants would be great. Our Chesney pants would be great. Our Valencia pants would be great in the cotton and a little bit of lycra. Really comfortable. This has a very Liberty of London quality to it as well, a small print. These are little pansies. I'm partial to pansies. And little purple pansies on a mustard background with some green leaves. Nice cotton, nice weight. Now, this is a different scale of black and white, but this would make, of course, a great Venice, as you can see from the original sample that I showed. I like this scale of check. And I don't know, to me, you can't go wrong with a black and white check. I have another black and white check I think it's a Frankie shirt actually in my closet, and I find that I pull it out a lot because I feel like I'm kind of snappy in it without being real loud. And you put it with white pants or black pants or red pants, color it up a little bit, and really fun. Notice that a lot of these shirtings, as they are coming from shirting factories, are narrower. So you do have to factor that in when you're ordering these particular cottons. Not all of them are narrow, but the shirtings tend to be. And you always know a shirting because it's woven. You know, if you see black and white checks in quilt stores, for example, they're likely to be printed. And to me, the woven ones are a little bit nicer. All right, we start with our little orange and white stripe, and it has literally oranges printed on it. So I think this is really fun. I think this would make a fantastic Venice shirt. It would also make a great Hugo shirt. The orange and white check. We use a little bit of this in our hibiscus kits for undercollar. This is the kind of thing that you could just order a little bit of and use for just bits and pieces of a garment. You don't have to have an entire garment. Really the same way with black and white check. If you just have a yard of this sitting around, you'd be surprised how often you would use it for insides of cuffs, inner parts of plackets, undercollars, just trims and bits and pieces. It's always nice to have black and white because it just sort of pops anything it's working with. This black and white would go with anything that's on this wall. Now this is a Liberty of London, and so we know that the feel of this is superb. Really a fine finish. Everything that comes from Liberty of London is the finest. And by the way, the price of Liberty of London fabrics, they're always on the high side because they are so fine, and where they come from, we get them out of England, of course. But I realized when I was hanging these up here, I forget that they're always wide. So consider that. You don't see that many cottons that are wider, but this one is, so it's 60 inches at least, if not more. So check that out. But I love that kind of fretwork work on it with the little sprinkling of small daisy-like flowers on it. I think it goes really well with either the orange check or the blue or the green. This green looks really good with this as well. And then I actually like all of these together. Now, I cut some of this for myself the other day before you all grabbed it, because this is going to be a Hugo shirt. This is my weekend project coming up. I'm crazy about this fabric. It has monkeys and cactus, which is an interesting combination. And it's a nice cotton, all cotton. Yes, all cotton. And I don't know, now that I see it with this green, I'm thinking there might have to be a little bit of a contrast going on there. I like it with this. Oh, I don't know. It looks great with the red. I kind of like it with all of these. You know, I could even see going with the plaid. One of the Oscar images that I saw had plaid shirt with floral shirt, plaid pants with floral shirt. I thought, maybe. All right, so that's it for fabric. So, anything on your mind that you want to ask about?
I would like to go up. We had a couple questions on some details of the fabric.
All right.
I'd like to just
Zoom in,
and hopefully that
Erin's
will
getting
help.
good at this zooming in without wheels on the
Try.
tripod.
I know there was some questions about the parrots.
Oh, okay.
For the birds, so I'm going to get even closer on that. So you can see the birds and the
I think they're so
leaves.
cute. I mean, this guy has a little crown. It's like there's 3 or 4 or 5 different birds, all parrot-like. I'm sure the parrot people are saying to me, oh, those aren't parrots, those are something, but
Let us know.
yeah.
All right, and I think I'll get a close-up of this so they can see how fine that is, if I can even get it. Do my best.
Does it show up?
A little bit.
A little bit. The red one might a little bit better. A little more contrast.
That is better.
Okay.
And then we had a question about the plaid.
All right.
The colors on the
All
plaid.
right, so we have gray and black and peach and turquoise and yellow green and red.
Okay, and we're going to move over to the monkey.
The monkeys. Isn't that fun?
That is really fun.
I know, I love this. That's also from Italy. So we get the Liberty of Londons, they come out of England. A lot of our prints come from Italy, sometimes France, but mostly Italy. And some of them are actually printed in the same mill in Italy that the Liberty of London prints are printed, which makes them extra special.
Okay, so let me see if we had some questions. I know we had a question about the Venice top. Do you have to change the shape or the anything about the armhole when you make it sleeveless?
Not in this case. This armhole seemed to work for a transition from having a sleeve to no sleeve. You do have to look at that depending on what garment you're doing. Occasionally you'll have to raise the under part of the arm side, but on this garment it didn't have to.
Which one is candy pink and which one is peppermint? Is the peppermint the red?
The red is peppermint and candy pink is pink. Pink, pale pink, and the red turns into darker pink. I know that's confusing, but
They are very close when you see them
Yeah.
from far away. What size of Venice do you wear?
that's a good question. I'm either a small or a medium. You want to look?
I would think you're small.
Probably.
Oh, that says medium.
Medium. I have on a medium.
Is the bird fabric a woven?
The bird fabric?
The parrots.
Yes, all of these are woven. There are no knits up here at all. All are wovens. Yeah. You know, this will make great pants too now that I look at it.
Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah.
I think the Picasso, you can really use
Right.
some thinner cottons or
Exactly.
some cottons that you wouldn't normally use for pants.
I agree.
Oh, someone said that they really enjoy your New York Times updates.
Oh, my Wall Street Journal ones?
Or they said New York Times, but
Yeah. I don't take the New York Times anymore, so you may
Wall
be
Street Journal.
referring to Wall Street Journal. Yeah. Yeah.
they like those.
I used to enjoy the New York Times supplements that would come out about fashion, but then it got too extreme for me. Wall Street Journal seems to satisfy me.
If you were to lengthen the shirt to a tunic or a dress length, would you keep the same width on the ruffle or would you make it wider?
If I were lengthening the the shirt to tunic length, I think I'd keep it the same. What would you do, Erin?
I would keep it the same. I think it has enough fullness. I
Right.
think you could check it against like your hip measurements and
Right.
what ease you want, but I think it would be
Yeah, I
fine
know
to
we're
keep.
seeing a lot of tiered things, but I have a little trouble seeing this. Let's say you left this the same length. I'm having trouble seeing this ruffle longer.
Oh,
And I'm not sure if that's what you mean. You know, you could lengthen this and then put that narrow ruffle on the bottom, which is probably what I would do.
Oh, okay, I see. I would misinterpreted that question. I think you interpreted it correctly.
Would you lengthen it to tunic length by lengthening the ruffle?
Right.
No, I would lengthen the body of the shirt and add the ruffle.
Add the ruffle. I think you could do either one.
You think so?
But it could hit somebody at the wrong place, maybe,
Yeah.
if you did that. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think I would lengthen it in the body.
I mean, maybe this could be a little bit longer, another inch or so, but I wouldn't lengthen it like 10 inches or something. I just don't think this strikes me. I see that look more on a simple dress. But when something like this has collars and buttons and sleeves and cuffs and all that, I can't see that look on this.
And I think for ease, or not ease, but I think it would be hard to do the back and not lengthen it in the body. I think you would want to think about that, because if you...
Yeah. Or you just cut this off. I mean, not cut it off, but straighten this out and forget all that detail.
Yeah, I think that would be too challenging.
Yeah,
I don't think I would want to wrap my head around that.
That would be tough.
Yeah. How far apart are the button pairs on the black and white top?
They are 1 inch and 1/8.
It's very exact.
I'll tell you how far they are. I've got my tape measure right here. Oh, they are exactly 1 inch and 1/8.
So you claim. Okay. If anybody has any other questions, I don't see any, but we do have a comment. Linda, you inspire me every week.
Ooh.
I have beautiful garment fabric. I've left lay because I'm terrified of alterations. I ordered my supplies from your video last week. Red pencils, tape, exam paper, and your books.
All right. Well, good. Thank you. Well, I think that workbook will really help people. I've gotten calls from people who are really enjoying doing that. It's like paper dolls. But I think it gives you some confidence to tackle some alterations and really put your mind into it before you have to deal with something in a large scale, or for you even. I know it helped me understand these processes before I really had to do them on real people. And by the way, these alterations have come to me. I didn't invent any of them. If you were to see my library, I probably have a shelf of this many fitting books from everybody, every famous sewing author ever. And I just remember when I was putting this together, I just looked through all of them, and over time I would try them on real people in our workshops and found that these were the ones that really worked for me. Now, every teacher out there is going to have a whole other set of things, but these are the ones that work for me on the customers who I see. And so I might have taken 1 from one book, 2 from another book, 3 from someplace else, none from some, it was just all over the board. So I can't lead you to one place where these came from.
What is the fabric content on your top you're wearing?
My top is 100% cotton. We just ran out of this fabric. I thought I was going to be able to show you this fabric, but it just sold. So.
All right, and then one last comment. For a dress, I would move the back ruffle detail to the front, which I think is a really...
Is that Samantha?
No, Kathy Hayes.
Okay. Well, that's interesting.
That's a great idea.
Well, that would be fun. I love that.
You guys are coming up with ideas left and right.
We learn more than you guys do. All right, so this week's promotions are all the fabrics that I've talked about are 15% off. The Venice pattern download or print is on sale. And we have 3 tutorials. We have a real comprehensive tutorial on sleeve plackets. Not only this particular technique of adding a bias strip to make a vent, but the more traditional shirt placket that you find on men's shirts. We have one on collars and stands that has 2 methods of installing a collar and stand. And then we have one called Anatomy of a Sleeve, which talks about sleeve caps and shape, if it goes back to the earlier question that I didn't answer very well. And it also is a comprehensive look at how to install a sleeve, how to sew it in, which I deal with in Sew Confident as well. And a lot of what's in Anatomy of Sleeve in terms of alterations in the fitting book now, but that tutorial does have the added benefit of seeing how to set in a sleeve slide by slide. So those are the promotions for the week.
Okay.
All right. Well, we have one more fitting session next week. We're going to be talking about pants. I can hardly wait for the questions. have to get myself kind of revved up for that one. So we'll see you next week.